Welcome to the 2025 Hankin Distinguished Lecture. My name is Ali Memari. I'm a professor in Architecture Engineering Department and Civil and Environmental Engineering Department, Hankin Chair in Residential Building Construction, and Director of PHRC, Pennsylvania Housing Research Center. Hankin Distinguished Lecture is a special lecture at Penn State, was created in 2006 in the honor of Bernard Hankin and his family who are present here. And the generous support of the generous support of residential construction program at Penn State. Each year we invite a world-class, well-known speaker to come to Penn State and present a lecture on thought-provoking and forward-looking topic related to housing industry. The lecture, for your information, will be posted with closed captioning on PHRC website, maybe after a week or two, after they go through it and edit it. And then you can watch all the previous, lectures as well. I think this is the 20th. So this is the 20th, Dennis will be speak. So before introducing our speaker, I want to take a few minutes and talk about our residential construction program. I know a lot of the students here in the audience are part of that residential construction program. They're taking classes. But that program has been basically started 1980 with the generous support of the Hankin family. The Hankin chair position that I hold was established in 1989 with an endowment of $1 million given to Penn State by the late Bernard Hankin and his family to support engineering excellence through education, research, and public service in residential construction program. We didn't have a residential construction program back in the 70s. So starting with 1980, we started this. It was Mr. Hankin's dream to see more engineering students, and most of the students here are engineering and architects, of course, educated in residential construction. He wanted to see actually civil engineers swinging the hammer and build homes and design homes. That was a dream, because he believed, he was a civil engineer from Penn State. He believed in the civil engineering profession and, of course, architecture engineering. There's a little bit of, tiny bit of difference between the two, but they are essentially the same as far as the structures and construction is. We work, as a result of this endowment and creation of the program, we work to bring basically Bernie's dream to reality by creating a residential construction program that will serve the industry with activities such as, for instance, offering courses in residential building design, like AE 470. Some of the students here are taking that course. Subdivision design, CE 410. Construction management, AE 471. Passive house design, AE 449. And building science and closure, that's AE or CE 542, which is taught next semester. Providing research opportunities to graduate students and undergraduate students. So we train PhD students and master's students, do research in our laboratories. They get their thesis, and we get a lot of publication. Providing laboratory testing services to industry. Let's say if he's a manufacturer of new type of wall system, let's say SIP panel or other products, they can work with us to test their products in our laboratory before sending them to a certified lab. We offer training programs, webinars, and on-demand courses. That's primarily by our PHRC colleagues, who are the outreach arm of our program. PHRC also organizes an annual conference, housing conference, that is geared more toward the practitioners, those people who build homes, those people who design homes, those people who are actually in the code and materials related to home construction. We publish a lot of journal papers, conference papers, a conference that is coming up, the 8th conference coming up in March. We kind of have an academic conference that professors and researchers, they kind of submit papers, and then we edit them, we do a peer review, and we publish the proceedings. So the proceedings are on our website. Say for each conference is 600 to 700 pages of papers published. So a great source of information. And then we participate in local, state, national professional societies and basically do our part. We participate, we learn from them, we contribute to their missions as well. And last but not the least, we support our NHB student chapter for participating in the competitions and other competitions that there may be For instance, Solar Decathlon. Some of our students participated in last year's Solar Decathlon. Then it was changed to Buildings Next. Moving forward, maybe we don't have Solar Decathlon. We're actually working on a new competition that we will share the information as soon as it is agreed upon and developed here at Penn State. So furthermore, Bernard Hankin not only provided direct support to Penn State, he also encouraged others to do the same. He inspired and asked individuals and companies to kind of support the Penn State residential construction because they serve the industry. So whatever we do here is to their benefit. The program is thankful for the support of from family of Hankin family, from Glunt family, NHB, National Housing Endowment, Pennsylvania Builder Association, our local Builders Association of Central PA, and so many others. One housekeeping item before we start the lecture. We will end the presentation with a Q&A period followed by a reception out there, just a light refreshments. The staff from PHRC will be taking a microphone around, so raise your hand so that we can see who has a question. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dennis Steigerwalt. He's the president of the Housing Innovation Alliance. He is a leading voice in housing innovation. That's what we need. We need to kind of be competitive. So we need to refresh, we need to upgrade our system and the way we do things. He's driven by a passion to create places for people to thrive. With extensive experience in change management and strategic innovation within residential development and home building, Dennis has a proven track record of leading large-scale market engagement initiatives and cultivating a partnership across diverse business ecosystem. That really suits his education and training because he's a business major. He knows what to do, entrepreneur. So you're going to enjoy that presentation. I had lunch with him. I enjoyed immensely the conversation. His background includes advising on international government-backed housing programs and orchestrating comprehensive industry transformation efforts. So these are kind of, when you think about these words, they have a lot of meaning, a lot of depth to them. And he is going to break down these words, these phrases. As president of the Housing Innovation Alliance, Dennis leads business strategy, market engagement, and program development with reach across over 2,000 companies that impact over 40% of U.S. housing starts. Prior to his current position with the Housing Innovation Alliance, Dennis helped change the face of housing industry in Saudi Arabia. That part's going to be a good part of his presentation, the experience and what he did in that country. He helped to create a nationwide program to develop a modular housing industry there, okay, from scratch. And with major tasks including modeling 26 strategic initiatives that would jumpstart the creation of a robust construction ecosystem, okay? Again, these words, these phrases have a lot of depth. He's going to break them down. Evaluating over 200 global technology providers and securing initial approval for $4 billion in Saudi government investment. Now, Saudis do invest a lot. So you've heard them recently. We're talking about $1 trillion. So I hope some of that money goes into housing. He was also a key player in Saudi Basic Industries Corporation, or SABIC. It's an organization that does investment for home innovation programs. A $30 million multi-year market housing value chain and ensuring that better construction practices are adopted throughout the GCC, which is the Gulf Cooperation Council made up of Persian Gulf, kind of small countries around it. Dedicated to empowering industry talent, Dennis is committed to mentoring and investing in the next generation of housing-focused entrepreneurs. So him and I have some vision, and I think that pretty much resonates with what Bernard Hankin had. You know, people start residential construction companies, have a vision, be entrepreneur, kind of engineers get into the housing construction. Ensuring that the ecosystem continues to grow and evolve. Dennis and his family are in Pittsburgh, and he loves, with 2 sons, he loves to go out on water, boating, and a lot of time in the mountains. We hope that you are as excited as we are for Dennis's lecture entitled The Future of Housing Now. Now, let's welcome Dennis Steigerwalt to present 2025 Hankin Distinguished Lecture.
After 20 years, I have to wonder where's that guy that you just introduced, because that's a pretty impressive introduction. Thank you for putting that together. You don't realize sometimes at the speed at which you're doing things, that all the things you can accomplish with the help of other people. So first thing I want to do is thank Dr. Mamari for bringing me in here today, the Hankin family for making this all possible, and the Penn State University for providing the resources they do to students to change the way we think about housing and delivering housing for the society. My goal today is, there were a lot of words and a lot of programs in that introduction, and I'm proud of every one of them. What I'm going to do today is kind of take you on a journey and try and do it in a visual manner so you can kind of see those experiences as I saw them and find ways to get yourself engaged in the housing industry, whether by intention or by accident, and find your passion to help solve one of the biggest challenges our society is facing today. For me, it was really an accident that happened, and I want to take you through that. Again, walk you through my journey, talk about the opportunities we see specifically in the housing industry. I'm going to talk to you a bit about how I shaped my personal mission based off of these experiences. I want to talk to you about a framework we've created for crowd-accelerated innovation, which is a solution we're bringing to the marketplace, and then share a little bit about what we're watching as far as trends in the trends within building innovation. So first, we'll jump into my journey. I grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, about 2 hours east of here. My 6-year-old self wanted to be an architect who doesn't like to build things and create these places for us all to kind of enjoy ourselves and connect. As I got older, I was pushed into the business world, and I went to the University of Pittsburgh and got a degree in finance and accounting. And I was the first in my family to get a degree. And the only picture, because when I graduated was 2000 to 2002, we don't have the phones that we have access to now. So the only thing I could find was my ID, and this picture was taken right after the Penn State game. So you have to forgive any look in the eyes or the hair. It was actually the last time we played you at our field for a while. But it was important for me when I went to school. Like I said, I was the first in my family to go to attend college. Moved away from a place that had more cows than people, and only 3 last names, so prospects weren't good all around. Had an opportunity to get out. It was either going to go to Philadelphia, State College, or Pittsburgh. Headed east and went just far enough that I found it, what at the time felt like a really big city and an exciting experience for me to engage in. When I was there, as I said, I was pursuing a business degree, so finance and accounting was top of mind for me. At one point, though, I stumbled across an internship in real estate development. And through that real estate development internship, I learned that you can take some of the nastiest sites in and around the city of Pittsburgh from our industrial legacy, which consisted of, massive acres of property in some of the best locations of the city, and that you could turn them into these beautiful places. So that was where I first got the bite for the built environment, which at the time I didn't even know was called the built environment. I just thought we were just building some really cool projects in great locations. Then I saw these things take shape and come to life, and it takes a decade just to go through the planning of these projects, and then another decade to get them built and sold. But this is where I got the most excited. I became obsessed with this idea around creating place and doing it in a way that was unique to what everybody else was doing, kind of finding a way to create density, third spaces for people to connect. But sadly, at the end of my term at Pitt in 2003, it took a different path, and it was a great path. I ended up starting my own wealth management practice, built up a nice firm, kind of rode out the great financial crisis and said, this is where I want to get back to. I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs that were in the built environment, so for me this is a great opportunity to kind of finally make that decision to get back in. So in 2011, I said I'm going to go back. And when I did it, I went to work for a group called Ibicus, which is a nationally recognized research and development firm that focuses on new building technologies for production home builders. What I didn't know is I was going to be taking on a project in Saudi Arabia. So I signed up to work with them as a project manager on a new and unique initiative that landed me in a number of different seats. I led a national market strategic innovation program on behalf of SABIC. I worked for the Minister of Housing and ultimately worked for a family office to implement some of the technologies that we were funding. Just want to walk you through that journey a little bit, because when I signed up, I thought I was working on construction in the Middle East. Actually, what it turned out I was doing, I was helping implement the royal family's Vision 2030 and developing a downstream industry mechanism that promoted new building technologies in Saudi Arabia. We were looking for ways to solve their housing crisis, which they were facing for over a decade as well, and do so by kind of weaning them off of expat labor, building more high-performance homes, and building them at a scale that they had never achieved before. So what had turned out to be what we thought was initially a construction project to showcase the best of what could be done, it became an international collaboration with over 50 manufacturers from around the world, and the first net zero energy LEED Platinum house built in the region. And I'll walk you through a little bit of that. But this was the first taste where this young kid from Eastern PA got a taste of what it was like to work with business entities from all around the world. So through this experience, I worked in 32 different countries, all of which had a different way of negotiating contracts, all of which thought I was some guy from the Wild West. So you had to kind of really work on building these relationships, understanding what makes people tick, and how you can build that trust and interpret what's being said in the room as well as what's not being said. So that was probably one of the most formative experiences of my life. I was on a plane 3 weeks a month, several months of the year, just circling the globe, building and rallying troops for this initiative. Ultimately, this is what we built. So this is a 20,000 square foot technology exhibition space that allows us to showcase the products and technologies that can go into the built environment. And then in the upper right-hand corner, you'll notice that there is a home, I was gonna say small home, a 10,000 square foot home that's set up as a way to talk about actually physical showcase of the products and technologies that we used to achieve net zero energy LEED Platinum status, and how those products could be scaled across the country and manufactured using our clients' products and our products and raw materials. And that's a zoom up of the house itself. So if you can kind of think of this experience, we did something nobody had done before. We did it with a group of manufacturers that oftentimes were competing in these markets. So we had to create a level playing field for everybody to get engaged in a marketplace that lacked some transparency at the time. So it was a pretty heavy lift. What we did here was then rolled out at scale in a 700-unit community that was designed by Stantec and delivered by a local Saudi general contractor. So what we did is, within a very short period of time, it was roughly 7 years, we went from demonstrating that we can showcase a global collaboration and translate that into a community that achieved LEED Silver status as well. So this project was highly recognized throughout the kingdom. Many members of the royal family participated. We saw active participation from groups like Aramco. And what that led to was a call by the Council of Ministers to participate in Saudi's reinvention of their home building industry, if you will. So we focused on creating 3 strategic programs. How can we expand the existing production? How can we pilot new technologies? And then how can we scale those technologies up? Ultimately, this led to us exploring a number of different programs from around the world. As Dr. Mamari mentioned, we talked about 200 different technology providers. We built out a roadmap over a 3-year time period for those 3 key pillars of how we would expand, pilot, and scale in a variety of different areas, with a heavy emphasis on modular construction and panelization, ultimately securing a $4 billion commitment. Through time, we partnered with a number of local family offices to actually implement this plan, so that in 2018, we laid out a roadmap to not only create some of the first pilot facilities, develop optimized designs, but then also show what it would look like if we partnered with developers to guarantee takeoff for these projects. We built a model that showcased what would happen in one region, Jeddah, and how that could be replicated around the Gulf Coast, or the Gulf Sea, or the Red Sea, sorry, and then translated across the country at scale. This is just an example of one of the facilities we set up. The idea here being this is a place that locals would want to work. So this is clean construction, right? So this is a steel panelized system that we built. We were doing wall panels, floor trusses, roof trusses, 3D modules for bathroom pods, and then also full volumetric modules, and this operation is still in business today. What's also cool is we really pushed the limits on how we engage with the market. So this is 2018, and we're in the process of using gaming engines to sell homes. So we were doing full 3D experiences. We'd put the client in the chair and run them around the house, if you will, so they could get a real feel for it. And the biggest reason for that was we were selling homes that were roughly 1,800 square feet when the average consumer expected a home that was 4,000 square feet. So there was as much an acceptability issue as there was an affordability issue in Saudi Arabia at that point in time. So our goal was really to kind of shift the paradigm of what was enough house to get you and your family started. Learned a lot of lessons in that process, but I think what we did then paid massive dividends here in the US market when we went into COVID and had to move to a full virtual sales experience. You just never know when some of these things you get yourself into are going to play. So my first son was born in Dubai in 2017. My wife and I are pregnant with our second in 2019. She suggested I never move her too far again while we're pregnant, so instead I just moved her back to the United States. So we all came back in 2019, and at that point, I took everything I learned in the Middle East and said, all right, I've always had this interest for creating what is now called missing middle housing. At the time, I didn't know that term, but really looking at human scale, real estate development and density, and then overlaying that with the innovation and the strategic initiatives that I pursued with the Saudi government. So with that, I said, all right, well, where's the US? Now I know what I get excited about. Where's the US landscape heading, and how do I start to interpret how I translate all those learnings into what I face today? So over the past few years, this is kind of a narrative that we've shaped. I'm going to talk a little bit about trends as we see them today, and then how we're addressing some of the opportunities those trends create. So fundamentally, I think we as an industry need to understand that how people live has changed. I'll get into detail about that a little bit more, but a lot of time capital drives the conversation around what we build and when we build it, and I think the consumer needs to be front and center for that conversation. A couple key demographic trends that are happening: 4.4 million people will turn 20 this year. Another 4.2 million will turn 65 this year. We're not necessarily designing houses for those groups though today. And there's a lot of data that says even though the typical household size is shrinking, houses just keep getting bigger and bigger. There's a lot of reasons for that, and we can get into that in a second. But we've also run some proprietary consumer studies that highlight the fact that consumers are 30% less comfortable today making big purchase decisions related to house and home than they were 2 years ago. Not a huge surprise but if you think about it, 2 years ago, interest rates were already skyrocket high, but now some of the economic and political uncertainty has elevated that concern. Not to mention all of the things, if we think about the total cost of housing. It's not just the mortgage payment, it's all the other parts and pieces that go into it, and we'll talk about that framework. 75% of US households can't afford a median priced home at $460,000. Another interesting stat, 50% of Gen Z that are renters today think the only ticket to getting a house is a lottery ticket. So whether it's true or not, it's what they think. If you think it, it starts to happen. And 38 is the average age of the first-time home buyers today, which is the highest that we've ever seen. So what we're saying is there's a lot of things that systemically we need to fix. All right, so why does this happen? I may be preaching to the choir here, but I'm just going to give you a couple top-line things. We have a very fragmented regulatory environment. There's about 40,000 different jurisdictions around the country that we have to answer to. Makes it really hard to scale. We've all heard this before, but the construction workforce is aging out. And as you can see, it's been we've known this for decades, and there's some solutions that I'm going to highlight that show this, but there's a lot of wisdom that is not being transferred from the current generation that's in the workforce and on their way out. And construction productivity lags. I think we have to take into consideration the wisdom that's aging out and the regulatory environment that adds to that. So it's not just the fact that we're not getting better because we don't want to. There's some things that are getting in our way, but there's some opportunities to overcome there as well, or opportunities we can tackle as well. The industry runs on a complex network of transactional relationships. It's almost like a relay race. Somebody passes the baton to the next and to the next, and it continues around. And if you don't, you're really focused on your segment of the market quite often. But this level of relationships that are required to deliver the 1 million homes we deliver around the country throughout the year talks about some of the, again, inefficiencies that may exist, but also some of the opportunities. So in summary, like one master plan community is 1,000 different touch points, and there's a lot of thrash in the system. Again, there's a lot of spend on overhead that might not actually get into the ground with the way the current environment's been set up. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that have figured this out, and I think there's an opportunity to get involved and continue to shape their thinking. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the way a production home builder is set up, so think of this as the large builders that are delivering a majority of the homes in the country today. The way that we approach this is thinking, I want to kind of paint the picture. So if we have a builder who's delivering 3,500 homes across 7 different divisions, CEO has very specific goals and objectives he's trying to achieve. He has a VP of construction that's responsible for each of those divisions. He's got a couple of objectives he's got to achieve. Now we have your field super and your trade teams that are working within the homes in those divisions, their support staff, and the folks that are focused on customer care and warranty. Now, this is all to say that if we collectively work together and we're not siloed in our thinking, there's a massive opportunity for us to think differently in the way that we create value for the consumer. And a lot of builders, again, are working towards this model. I heard this saying one time, and it went something along the lines of, organizations do what they're organized to do. So a bit of what we're going to share with you is a rethinking of the organization. So I've kind of did this whole doom and gloom thing, right? But it's not really the case. We do a lot of research with the largest builders in the country, and we've been watching to see what level of investment they've been making in R&D initiatives. So we're an industry that's been kind of knocked around a bit for not making the same level of commitment that you see in aerospace or automotive. But in 2024, we found that 25% of the top 200 home builders had a dedicated innovation function. That was much higher than anybody thought it was. When we did it when we conducted the study this year, we found it increased to 34%. And when we look at that list, there's a lot of folks that just chose not to report on that question that we know also have innovation functions. So these teams may vary in size and scale from half an FTE all the way through to a full national team. But the point is, this conversation is becoming table stakes amongst builders to stay competitive and deliver the housing solution that consumers need. We also did a deep dive to understand what are their areas of intention and focus. So how can we as an organization, or how can we as an industry support them in achieving these goals? What is interesting enough, if you kind of draw a line through the middle from digital design tools up and alternative construction materials down, you'll notice that the biggest areas of emphasis are those that they can control internally. The change management process is difficult, but it's theirs. From the bottom, from halfway down, the change management process becomes an external one. Again, still complex, but it's one of those that requires a lot more people to move along on that journey with them. So what we did is we said, all right, well, if those are your areas of focus, what's driving innovation for you today? And really try to understand why you've put these teams into place, and when you think about your growth objectives over the next 5 and 10 years, you're making these commitments. And what we did is we wanted to draw a line to show kind of consistencies between 2024 and 2025 and some shifts. I think the biggest ones that are of most interest to us, because of the areas of focus that we have and some of the solutions that we see, and I'll highlight, it's all about cycle time. How do I go from sale to start to completion as fast as I possibly can? How do I reduce my material costs? And some of that can come in waste. And then how do I reduce my labor costs? And what I think is really interesting, the fact that the reduction in labor costs has jumped significantly from 24 to 25. So to say all that, what we found when we have these conversations is everybody gets excited about the idea of bringing innovation, but there's a lot of pushback when it comes to change. Change takes time, it has costs, and there's going to be a few misses on that journey. The next few slides I want to share highlight how you as an individual or a founder or someone who wants to partner with builders could be thinking about this, and this is directly from the lens of a production builder. If you have an idea that you think is the next best thing, it still has to achieve 3 clear goals right out the gate. It's got to be cheaper, and we're thinking total cost of the solution, but oftentimes it's first line item, right? So we have to kind of be able to combat and have that conversation. We think it's got to be faster. I talked about reduction in build times, that's consistent. And it's got to be better, and it can't just seem better, it really has to be better. And these have to be clear arguments you can make quickly, because as I just mentioned, everybody's working through a lot of different things. And even if you can tick those 3 boxes, there's 3 key things that you're going to need within each organization to make it happen. You're going to need to be able to clearly articulate the value proposition through their eyes. You're going to need that internal champion that's going to go for bat in every board meeting to make sure that the solution, the change management happens. And you're going to need a clear execution plan both with the internal and external team. So when I talk about this, again, looking at what I've seen around the world, looking at what we've observed in the US market, there is I call it an opportunity and not a barrier, because I think there's a huge opportunity for us to join hands and kind of collectively solve some of these things and make the most of it. So what I've done is I've carved out a personal mission around this, and this is where it gets real exciting to connect with an audience like this. And I made a rookie mistake on the next few slides. I didn't cut and paste my images, so they're going to be a little wonky. But for me, growing up, it was all about surrounding yourself by the right people and being around, making sure that those folks were always holding you up and pushing you forward. And I think we've all heard this before, but one of the things my dad said to me, he said, when you get out to Pittsburgh, just make sure you're not the smartest one in the room. And I can say, after you see the rest of these slides, I've successfully achieved the fact of not being the smartest one in the room. I'm constantly surrounding myself by talent that wants to get somewhere, and I'm helping be the glue to drive them to that place. So for me, I've created these guiding principles. I'm really focused from a personal and professional perspective around how we live as families and consumers and individuals, how we as an industry build, and then how we collectively work together in a collaborative yet competitive environment to drive the industry forward. My personal mission statement as I work with my teams and as I work with anybody in the industry has come back to this fact around I'm here to connect, to create, to love, and to live. And I stand by that in all the decisions that I make and all the programs that we get involved in. And then my personal contribution statement is around creating courage to be bold, knowing that we're going to fail forward and it's okay, and then again, to create those connections to affect meaningful change. And really, I'm doing it for these two guys. When you start having conversations at home on whether you're going to save for college or save for your kid's first house, I think that's when it becomes a reality of what's happening in the marketplace today. And again, I'm doing all this now to say there's a huge opportunity now to apply leverage in the right places and drive some real change. So for me, I look at this and I say, I want to have the ability from wherever I land to impact 10 million households over the next 10 years. I'm going to make it possible for them to live their best life. I'm going to accelerate, and I'm going to do that in 3 different ways. I'm going to focus on accelerating the commercialization of new technologies, working with founders, as Dr. Mamari mentioned in the introduction. I'm going to work to curate insights and decision-making tools that empower decision makers to allocate capital in the best possible locations and as swiftly as possible. And I'm going to partner to develop concept homes and communities that showcase what should be done so that we can lead by example. So to do all that, it's going to take a pretty robust ecosystem and a lot of folks that want to go on that journey with you. So here's what I want to present to you as kind of a solution to all of this. I spend most of my day kind of threading my needle between 2 situations. One is we're too busy to focus on innovation, or we don't have enough time or revenue to do it. Sorry, too busy to focus on innovation or not enough revenue to focus on it. So it's kind of this delicate balance we walked. That's all changed over the past year and a half. Right now, as I said, with the investment in those resources, we're seeing a point in time where organizations are moving forward aggressively with the commitments they've made to try out new solutions. The other thing I'm overcoming quite often, and this is a great Brazilian proverb that it sounds much better in Portuguese, but it's a dog bit by a snake is afraid of sausages. So just because it didn't work the first time, we have this expectation that it might not work the second. So there's a bit of that in our industry where trying new things can come at a great cost, and that's understandable. So we have to be in a position to de-risk that. So I think between helping folks understand where to place their bets most effectively and creating an opportunity to de-risk trying those new things, we're at a point now that the industry is ready to receive the message that we've created. And we're doing that by establishing what we call a crowd-accelerated innovation platform. So this is a way, if you kind of think about the idea of bringing people together, showcasing what's working from market to market, and then highlighting how that's worked, and then challenging others in other markets to translate it and build off of that experience and continue that conversation throughout the course of the year, over the years, and into the next generation. So building off of over a decade of experience from what was called the Best Practices Research Alliance, we've established the Housing Innovation Alliance. So this is a national network today, and I'll get into the details of who's in that network. But the idea was to galvanize industry leadership around these pain points and aggregate resources so that we could go after solving them together. The way we did that is we painted a picture for what we thought the future home building company would look like. We went around, we asked all of our members, talked to a lot of people in the industry, and we came up with a very heavy digital conversation, and this was back in 2017, so focused very heavily on the digital side, very customer-driven, and very much on the productivity side of things, looking at prefabricated solutions to drive speed and quality. Then we said, all right, now how do we look at innovation collectively as an organization and as an industry? Well, we're going to focus on emerging business models. What's there that we can work on, or what's coming out? Think of build to rent as a solution, or other home as a service models that kind of introduce new ways for institutional capital to get involved in the housing industry. We look at people strategies. How do we organize our talent internally or externally? We talk about products. That's at the community level, the home design itself, and all the systems and technologies that go into it. And then we say about the process, and that's everything that brings it together from dirt to dweller, and how we bring all these solutions under roof. So today, I'm excited to say we've aggregated 2,000 companies that share this vision with us. A couple interesting things we've done, that we've created a nice balance where we have about half of that is what we'll call housing providers. That's your home builders, your general contractors, your developers. And then the other half is what we'll refer to as industry experts. And these are the folks that pretty much, it's everybody that makes the builder's world go round, if you will. Couple other areas of interest, we have a very heavy focus on off-site construction, as I mentioned, and we bring a lot of capital into the room for conversation, because if we can't influence where the capital goes, it's going to be a hard time influencing the new decisions that need to be made. Another thing that we took the leadership on was establishing a group of partners from around the industry to support this cause as well. So we had recognized names from building product companies, technology providers, universities, emerging technologies, consultants, join the cause by taking on really a board role and providing both talent and financial resources to help drive the mission forward. So what this allows us to do is get pilots that we're exploring into market very quickly. We have access to great resources all around the country and all around the world for testing and development, and it really allows us to go from idea to concept to action very quickly. So collectively, we built out this platform that we refer to as again, this is our Crowd Accelerated Innovation Platform. Along the top, you have all of the convenings that we host throughout the course of the year to connect these stakeholders. And along the bottom, you have examples of the project types that we've brought together out of those convenings to actually start to implement some of the solutions we're seeing. So I'm just going to fly through a couple examples of this with you quickly so you can get an idea for what we have working in the marketplace. But our annual Housing Innovation Summit brings together about 200 leaders from across the industry to talk through, not to promote product, but to talk through the challenges they're facing and break down at those roundtables how we can collectively work together to solve the problems within their specific organization. So we're finding talent that has an issue to face, and collectively how we can work together to face that issue. Everything we do is keeping the group together for 3 days. It's all a very strategic approach to building relationships and helping break down the barriers. Because not everything we do is ready for prime time, we created a funnel that allows us to bring early stage solutions and technologies in front of the builders, and we launched our own startup competition in partnership with a local, or with one of the most established housing-focused venture capital firms. And now we're on year 4 of this competition. It's gone to the point now where we have 4 cohorts that have gone through. That's 12 winners, several of which have received investment rounds from us and groups associated with us, and others that have gone on to receive probably north of $100 million in investment from industry partners. We tried to stay away from the policy game for quite a while, and this year we just couldn't keep ourselves out of it any longer. So we started the National Housing Supply Summit as a way to connect industry leadership with the folks on Capitol Hill and talk about industry-led innovation and what policy we need to see to help accelerate that change. So if we think about the cry to increase housing supply, this is a industry-led conversation around that. Right now, we bring about 450 people together. First year was this year, held at NHB's headquarters, going to be doing it again next year. So again, another great way to get the right folks engaged, so it's not just us talking about the solutions, but actually engaging with the folks that are going to help pull the right policy levers to make it happen. Another thing we do is like to get in the field and introduce you to characters you might not otherwise see, working on projects you might not otherwise get to explore. This is a really unique artist who has become a developer because he had to see the type of project he wanted in his community executed. And what he's doing on that flex there is his cap stack was so complicated when he built his last project, he actually had it tattooed on his arm. So he was pointing out that he owns 1% of that little box that his finger's on right now. But what we do is by connecting the network that we've created with folks like this and connecting him with folks like those in our network, we're able to exchange information across barriers, or across boundaries that might not otherwise happen. And we're doing it at a very quick pace. So we do about 5 of these a year with about 50 people in markets all over the country. We also put unlikely characters on the same stage. So here we have the CMO from Taylor Morrison, one of the top home builders in the country, alongside the founder of Liquid Death Water. And it was a branding conversation, right? So what can we learn from one another in that dialogue? And how do we introduce consumer-driven brands into the messaging of a marketplace that's otherwise been fairly safe? So we kind of act as an instigator and a catalyst in these ways. Dr. Mamari mentioned about challenges earlier. We've taken things a step further. We've always enjoyed partnering with universities. We're now going to be moving the needle a bit by we've taken on a leadership role for what we call the Housing Innovation Challenge. This is a national design build competition that will start with a design competition running from December to April. And then from May to October the following year, we're actually going to physically build homes on the ground that will be turned over to residents of Charlotte. So this isn't a design build competition for just for conceptual sake. This is something that's designed to inspire industry and then form partnerships between the universities and builders that are going to implement these solutions on the ground and then scale them across their businesses. We create some tools and resources. We're the first organization to bring together a crowdsourced map that demonstrated where all the offsite production capabilities were in the United States. So this is something that was hard to kind of retrieve from any one organization. We partner with a number of trade associations. We've got customer lists from our clients, and we brought it together as a way to show investors where the gaps are and to show builders where the technologies lie. The idea here, again, is we can, as a collective group, how do we continue to aggregate resources that are out there and create real tools that can help decision makers going forward? We walk the talk on concept homes. I mentioned a little bit about the fact that we like to implement what we see. So the goal here is to work with our partners to showcase not only the insights that we're hearing from within the industry and the marketplace, but then to take them and implement them and make the information available to the public. So this particular house was built off of a deep set of consumer insights from a study that ran from 2020 to 2022. It was built using volumetric modular construction, and we allowed Professional Builder Magazine to follow the entire journey, all the hits and misses, in a very public fashion. What got us excited was we wanted to set a couple benchmarks out there, so we said, what can we do for high-performance housing? What can we do around waste reduction? And what can we do around carbon footprint reduction? I'm happy to say that on the high-performance piece, we hit Zero Energy Ready. Here's a score of 46. We reduced construction waste by 87% within the component that the factory controls, and we were able to hit a 65% carbon emission reduction for both embodied and operational carbon, as validated by Cal Poly. So we've, again, gone out and tried to set the tone for all of the challenges and all of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace. How can we create roadmaps for folks to engage around that? That concept home led to a project that we're going to be announcing tomorrow. We actually partnered with a master plan community developer out of Florida to take the next level of technology implementation, which we had taking a 20-acre parcel within their community and developing what we're calling an innovation neighborhood. So we're working with all of the builders that are already delivering homes in their community and introducing new building technologies that are ready for prime time and could be scaled across not only their community, but also the rest of Florida and the greater southeast region. We tie that back into some work that we do with HUD. And right now we've been providing advisory work at the federal, state, and local level, and this is new for us over the past 18 months, but basically taking all of these learnings and all of these relationships and leveraging industry investment and government policy investment to try to accelerate the adoption of these technologies. So again, running deep dive on consumer insights, understanding what industry's pain points are, looking at how we can take all the projects that we've implemented already and translate them across other markets, and then create communication vehicles that allow us to get this content into the marketplace faster. And we've built a pretty amazing team to go after doing all this. So I'll be the first to say these folks they're not Housing Innovation Alliance staff, but these are all people who throw their heart into what we do. So we work with an amazing network of experts from across the industry in a variety of different disciplines to get our message across. And then if you think about how we activate that around all the partner companies I showed you, all of the members that are in the organization, our board of advisors and industry relationships, we have this complex web of thousands of different people that are helping us to drive this mission forward. So I want to kind of transition a little bit and talk about what we're watching as we go forward. So kind of set the stage for the things that you'll see implemented in some of those projects and what we're learning from some of the projects we recently implemented. I'm going to pull up a quote from another Pittsburgh native from a movie that was original long ago. Oftentimes, and I tied this back to what we saw from production builders, oftentimes founders are too busy thinking about if they can do it. They're not really focused on if that's the problem they should be trying to solve. So our goal is to help these solution providers get in front of the builders and the adopters of the technologies as fast as we possibly can. And we do that by creating funnels with a variety of venture capital partnerships. So even though a lot of the ideas we see may not be venture backable, they are ideas that should have an opportunity to succeed. So we work with each of these groups, all of which have a very specific focus on housing, all kind of some level of interest in commercial development as well. But we work with them in order to understand where their pipeline opportunities that they are passing on that we can help accelerate, and what are the common trends and themes that we're seeing across all of them. We formed a specific relationship with the team from Home Technology Ventures and leverage a framework they've developed when they make investments in housing and housing-related industries. So they've developed this home framework that really focuses on solutions and a rubric, if you will, for how we reduce the total cost of housing for consumers. So one I talked a bit about before, what are the innovations in how we deliver the home? How do we reduce the total occupancy costs? Think about insurance, HOA, taxes. We look at maintenance, upkeep, and adapting the home for future use. And then we also think about what does it mean to be able to unlock equity or leverage equity that you don't yet have in an asset that you want to own. So think about fractional ownership and things of that nature. But this becomes a model for us to say, if we're not looking at something that's going to have a significant impact on one of these areas, we're probably not looking at the right thing. I won't get into all the trends that we've been monitoring. I think you're going to be familiar with these from watching the news or reading the newspaper. But you know, there's kind of 6 macro areas that we've been focused on and really trying to understand how we can support founders in each of these areas. What that's led us to is 5 big buckets of opportunity that we see within investment and within technologies that are being developed. So the first one is there's a lot of work being done on the front end with helping understand the regulatory environment and streamlining it. You can think of folks that help accelerate permit data or aggregate permit data, provide access to the most important details from municipal meetings, and provide the exact quote and time of the quote from a council member when they endorsed one project but shut down another when they had the same attributes. So ways to really start to hold people accountable to accelerate and remove some of those inefficiencies. There's folks that are what we call interpreters. These are companies that can take data that's already publicly available and make it usable by any team in the marketplace. A lot of these folks, that's the codification of the wisdom in the industry that I talked about before. It's taking what folks that have been in the industry for 20 years know and putting it into a platform so it could be translated across divisions. And then there's expediters. There's folks that are able to get things done faster, and there's a significant value for that. So if we kind of think about that within the context of what's happening in the regulatory environment and technologies that can boost these areas. We talked about this a little bit earlier over lunch. The role of AI in construction, I think we're still in the very, very early innings, but 3 specific areas that we're seeing massive impact is around site selection and running feasibility studies. I mean, teams of 2 can do what teams of 20 did in 10 seconds with the same platform these days. Generative design, being able to kind of create your rules around a specific design within a specific municipality or product type and being able to translate that instantly, even going as far as being able to take 2D plans and turning them into permit-ready structural designs in days and iterate 6 or 7 different times around that based off cost. And then you see automated takeoffs, which is a seemingly obvious opportunity for being able to do quick trade-offs, especially when you tie that into somebody who's got an AI supply chain solution and they can go direct to the manufacturer based off bid. This is an area that's really exciting for us and for me personally is kind of what is the next generation of off-site and industrialized construction solutions look like. There's a lot of activity happening on microfactories. So for a while there, we thought everything had to happen at this scale of tens of thousands of units a year. Those are big beasts to feed. So this is an opportunity looking at what we're calling kind of pop-up factories that can service 200 to 400 homes in a specific market and are mobile. There's a lot more automation coming into the marketplace. I'm not going to say that it's there yet from a cost-benefit perspective, but there's a lot of companies looking at it. And then those that are focused on industrialized building. So because this is an area of interest to us specifically, and we worked on a few projects, I'm going to use this opportunity to share a few videos, two very different contexts. One is going to be a video of a partnership with a top 5 builder that's implementing this industrialized approach that's scalable. And then another one is an introduction to a builder out of Fort Wayne that's partnered with a robotics company to take a similar approach, but that's a few years out yet.
Our answer for our customer is always yes.
This has been a really, really amazing project for us. I honestly don't think it could have gone much better.
We basically did this in 7 hours. There's been a lot of enthusiasm. I think seeing is believing.
It's incredibly exciting. It's awesome to be part of this, just to know that we're really changing the industry. This was a collaborative effort between Meritage, MyTech, and 84 Lumber. The big goal is to standardize construction so it's repetitive, so it speeds up time, not just during the frame or pre-frame, but post-frame. We collaborated with our Columbia truss plant. We went with 20-foot long wall panels. Our floor cassettes were up to 35 feet long. Our roof cassettes were 13.5 feet wide. What that enabled us to do is have fewer swings of the crane.
The way everything came together when we were flying in the wall panels and the floors and the roof, it was really incredible. The 84 team did a great job. Just seeing everything go together like a puzzle piece was really, really fascinating.
A large part of this project is what happens post-frame. We pre-drill holes to allow the electrician, the plumber, HVAC trade, when they come in, they already have the route. They don't need to spend the time drilling. They can do the work of running the wires, running the pipes, installing their product.
We utilize 3D technology to walk through a virtual model and look for conflicts that may exist within the design.
You wear the VR goggles. You can poke your head into the model, you can look around at the structural elements, you can look for collisions, clashes, resolve them virtually before we're at on job sites.
I've done several of these innovation build projects. It's been the most complex, advanced home that we've built. Ultimately, I think whoever ends up buying this house is going to have a wonderful home to live in. 84 Lumber made this project their own and made sure that they helped us really reach the finish line of this house. And I think we've succeeded even beyond the goals that we had anticipated for this project.
We want to keep doing this. Most of the discussions have been, when's the next one? When can we do it again?
After the high-fiving is done, what really sets this in motion is the next day. It's a partnership, it's long-term. You get committed to a subdivision, it repeats, you build out in that subdivision, and then that scales to a region, and then that scales to a division. That's how we really grow the industry.
All right, so pretty cool stuff, getting some of the technology in the hands of the next generation, like to be able to be on site and do clash detection through augmented realities. I mean, there's not a whole lot of production builders doing that today. And I think it just really starts to open up the conversation for a different level of trade engagement and change management process that we haven't seen in the industry before. So now I'm gonna put that up against, again, a technology that's a little further out, but is starting to be introduced in partnerships with development companies and home builders in the United States. So this is the first deployment of a technology from a company called Automated Architecture out of the UK. So these are 2 cells that create wall panels using these robotic arms. They will take a 2D drawing, translate it into what they call their blocks. So they have these different size building blocks. They can create up to, I think it was 3 billion different iterations of a design if they need to. They haven't obviously tested all that, but the point being, this is a way for us to kind of implement plan level customization, have it developed and delivered throughout the night, and then ready to go and ship to site for assembly. You can see that the speed of which this is showcased is a little bit slower than what we saw in the last one, but this is a video from last week when they launched this product with this. And it's being launched in partnership with a developer out of Fort Wayne, who also has an investment arm that makes investments in these emerging technologies and has recently invested in a home building company as a way to accelerate the adoption of these technologies. So they've kind of gone full down the value chain, and they're partnering with their own internal lumber yards as well as a way to better serve not only their own clientele through their builder, but also serving other builders in the marketplace. So each of these pieces, as you can see coming off, those are each a block as it's being lifted up in the rear. It'll be set up off onto the side and placed, and it will go through these all day. And the only manual part of the process is wheeling the cart, where those blocks that were built have to come off the assembly line. So next steps with this are to create an opportunity to add insulation. So they're working with a company called Timber HP, which has a very dense insulation product like mineral wool that can be picked up by these arms. Also working on a way to start integrating MEPs. So you could actually get a pretty much completed wall panel to your site. All right. So kind of also transitioning over, that last one kind of crosses the chasm a little bit here on automation of trade work through robotics. So we're starting to see a lot more on painting robots, drywall finishing, which are two areas that people, and tile laying. So all three areas that folks are trying to figure out how to solve for labor and talent on, and introducing that into the marketplace. And then the home ownership journey itself. So this is kind of how we start talking about the total cost of housing, and a way to create a more accessible path. So one is almost providing the financial advice necessary to coach folks up to become homeowners, teaching folks what it's like to own a home, because most houses don't come with a care guide like your car does. And then what are also alternative ownership models where you can get in and own a portion of a home, or even do rent to own. One of the surveys that we conducted indicated that folks that are renting today, 50% of them would pursue a rent to own option if it meant that they could own the house that they want. That's the highest that number's ever been, so also another really interesting data point. And then if you kind of look at all those macro trends, we're partnering with universities and extend the opportunity to Penn State as well, and other partners in the field to kind of pursue pathways that allow us to develop solutions in each of those trends that we're seeing. We're looking at supply chain optimization, focused on advanced building solutions. We're digging into a technology accelerator with Home Technology Ventures as a way to create a recurring model for new solutions that come into the market and get tested quickly. We've launched that national design build competition, as I mentioned, and we have a roadmap in place right now to kind of understand what it would mean to break down some of these production barriers for the larger builders in the country. I just want to add, I talked a little bit about where I get most excited and the impact that I'd like to have. There's three themes that are converging, two of which I've already talked about, one I'll introduce here quickly, that I think are going to paint a really unique picture for us over the next 10 years. So one is the fact that these microfactories are being developed, and they're being developed at scale, meaning there's a lot of companies pursuing this pathway. Usually that means there's a market. And they're helping collectively to drive down costs. Two, there's a lot of state-level policy that's accelerating what we can build, where we can build it, and accelerating the scaling of some of these building technologies. The state of Colorado is a great example. They've put tens of millions of dollars into either inviting companies in from other markets to open up new operations, scaling existing operations, or even trying out innovative technologies if they're used in different housing projects. And then the third piece is the influence of Japanese capital and know-how. I don't know if anybody else has been following this, but this year kind of really broke when they found out that if you look at Sekisui House, they're the 5th largest home builder in the country if you aggregate all the builders that they've acquired over the last 10 years. These groups have a ton of financial horsepower. They think in 100-year business plans, so our down markets are just a blip. And they have a ton of know-how, not only on industrialized construction, but also how to reduce the total cost of home ownership. So I think if you look at the idea of we can deploy small-scale industrialized solutions, we have states that want more of it and are incentivizing it, and we have capital and know-how that's coming into the market in massive ways, that's a really interesting convergence of opportunity to work towards solving some of the housing issues. And then I just want to wrap things up and then open it up for questions with a couple key things. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to meet with a gentleman named Jonathan Fields. He's the author of a book called Sparked. Kind of, it's a a personal assessment that I suggest all of you take. It's free to do online or to complete online, so you don't even have to read the book. But the book is a great read. What it does is it tells you where your strengths are and what takes the most energy from you to achieve. So you have your kind of your lead sparketype, your supporting sparketype, and then we'll call it your anti-sparketype. What this does is it helps you understand where you can best fit in the change management process, how you best communicate with your team, and where you can add the most value. And also just tells you what to stay away from, because it's just going to drain you. And find people that complement you and can support you in that way. When Jonathan and I worked on a presentation for one of our events, we really focused on this concept of the Misagi, which is a Japanese tradition of an annual cleansing. It's been kind of popularized over the past few years by a number of different podcast hosts and other things, but basically you have to do something that's so difficult that you have a 50-50 chance of doing it, but it can't be something that can kill you. And it shouldn't be something that you'd want to brag about. So you can't, climbing a summit or running a marathon, they don't fall into this category. And you can kind of look into what some of these bold ideas are, but it's really a personal challenge to kind of build your confidence heading into the year and to kind of cleanse yourself of any of the stresses or things that might be holding you back from the year before. We worked collectively to build what would the business version of that look like. So we're in the process of kind of outlining that still today. But since it's a very personal exercise, we're trying to translate that into a safe space within the business environment where we can have that same kind of concept applied. But through that exercise, one of the things that Jonathan shared with us is this quote. And as I said in the beginning of this conversation, I'm hoping that the journey I shared with you shows you that you can kind of get involved in the housing industry in a number of different ways. There is a lot of opportunity out there, but as you go after it, it's going to shake you a bit, and that's okay. And what I have found, and this isn't for everybody, but I've surrounded myself with people who they can see when you're shaking and they hold you still, and then you do the same for them. So I've always found that I just make sure to surround myself with those people, remember who they are, and keep bringing them up as they bring you up. And with that, I'd just like to say that I think now's the best time to build, and I invite you all to join us in the industry.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
That is for this inspirational, progressive, and forward-looking presentation. So it's time for questions. Please raise your hand, and Chris can bring a microphone to you. Please raise your hand. You want to start, Sam?
Oh, he's in the front row. I'm going to be in all kinds of trouble here.
Yeah, so I share the same amount of enthusiasm for your passion as you do, but let me paint you a picture. You take Toll Brothers, Lennar, Pulte, Ryan, U.S. Homes, and you walk in the front door. There's a hallway. On the right, there's a dining room. On the left, there's a living room. Walk further, on the left-hand side is the door to the basement. Walk further, there's a kitchen on the right, family room on the left. Go upstairs, there's a primary suite. There's 4 bedrooms and scattered around 3 bathrooms, so a quarter-acre lot. So when you talk about innovation and change and reluctance to change, and these 5 companies control a good portion of the market.
Right.
Does your passion include not pushing them out of the way, but convincing them, notwithstanding the profit margins they have, to alter their model?
Yeah, I mean, our idea is to embrace it. I mean, D.R. Horton's the largest builder in the country today. They're one of our supporting companies because they believe this conversation needs to happen. And they know that they alone can't be the only adopter of a technology for it to succeed in the marketplace. So they know that they're going to have to share the adoption of these solutions market by market with different competitors in order to drive it through. And we see that happening in different places. So I think the idea for us is, really to embrace their existing operations and help them get better where they want to get better. And I think you gave a great example of when you described the floor plans. I mean, one of the things that we're starting on is that floor plan probably is outdated.
It's over half a century old.
Yeah, but it's what money knows, right? And money makes the calls on to your point about margins. So I think our goal is to make sure that we can create something that elevates the consumer experience. is high performance and has lasting performance as a built entity, and can do so with healthy margins across the value chain.
Other questions?
Don't be shy. Students,
Yeah, so when you talk about construction is aging, and you're talking about that wisdom from the older generation not being transferred over, how do you see that affecting the overall industry? And like, what do you think us as the new generation can do to gain some of that wisdom?
Yeah, great questions. So there's a lot of organizations right now that are setting up trade development programs or talent development programs, depending on where you fit into the ecosystem. And they're trying to help bridge that gap now so that they can bring as many folks in that want to transfer that knowledge and to have that conversation. So I applaud all those efforts, and I think we can't get enough of that. I think that the challenge is it's always, if you had to learn how to ride a bike without ever seeing anybody ride a bike before, it's going to take you a lot longer. You're going to make a few more mistakes, you're going to have a few more skinned knees, and some people will never pick it back up again. Right? And we'll just have people who don't learn how to ride bikes. And I think that's, if you think about the impact that can have as we look forward, I think there's a short and long-term effect that we will feel. But I think there is a change in the air as well, where as a society we're placing a lot more value on folks that provide these services and solutions within our economy and within our society, like what you see in other cultures. And I think as we start to continue to see that progress, and more people are taking advantage of the opportunities that are given to them to pursue these pathways, we'll close that gap. There was another part to your question, sorry. How do you best get engaged with it? I think reaching out to, so the NHB student chapters were mentioned previously. There's a lot of other, like I said, a lot of other education programs right out there. The Leading Builders of America, which is some of the larger builders in the country, they also have programs out there around the Building Talent Foundation, which might be a little bit more focused toward trade development today. But there's certainly opportunities to engage with builders and their service providers at different levels today than I think there ever was, because they're all looking for the next generation of talent. And the nice thing is you can move quickly through the industry now, because there's they want to grow talent as fast as they can. So I think the first step is reach out to your industry associations that fall within a vertical or a specific area of focus that you're interested in, and then find folks that are working. I'm sure there's a ton of graduates from here that are working in that space, right? Or groups like ours that can connect you to other alumni programs. And there's always, one thing I've noticed is everybody in this industry always wants to help. Yeah, thanks for the question.
Do you do much work with the rating companies like US Green Building Council and Passive House?
So we partner with them where we can, but a lot of our focus right now is we like Energy Star within our builder network was a heavy emphasis. We will bring folks that are looking at different levels of energy performance in to talk about techniques that can kind of be exchanged without the significant cost impact. So yes, there's a collaboration there, but we're kind of working our way into where can we create value for the consumer and what can be sold. And right now, the angle, less than a rating agency like that, is really around health and wellness. And how can we create spaces that have indoor air quality, water filtration, a lot of natural light, and do that in a way that creates value for the consumer and still allows margin for the builders.
And not worry about getting it accredited or certified.
Yeah, not necessarily focus on the certification, but more the experience. And then you have to figure out how to put the data behind that experience as well, right? Is a lot of the equation, yeah.
Prove that you're actually doing what you're saying, and not worrying about getting the accreditation, certification.
Yeah, and while we support, again, I support those agencies and I support those certifications, and I certainly think there's been value achieved because it's the only way the consumer knew that these things were being done. But today, I think a lot of it is on, because of the focus on the cost, A lot of it is if we can't deliver those exact certifications at the cost, what else can we deliver that creates the value for the consumer?
I want to ask one more. Okay, so remodeling and home improvement is supposed to grow to about a $700 billion industry by 2030. It has been my bread and butter, and it's what I'm interested in. You home guys, you make your own problems to solve, and we come in and we solve problems that have been there for 200 years. Have you, in your plan for this new, this future of building, have you considered a place for home improvement, the do-it-yourselfers, the modifications people want to make to their homes to make them their own? Like there's a trend that's kind of petering out now that was big about creating a place for your elder parents to move into, right? Having 3-generational homes. Are the places you're designing able to be modified after? And is that considered in
It is. So in the investments that we're making going forward, when we look at, in the companies we're evaluating that the venture capital firms are looking to invest in, that is a big part of the conversation. Especially as it relates to aging in place and adaptability of existing structures. So resilience, durability, how adaptable and flexible are these solutions? And then how do we make, how do we make it easy to be serviced and maintained, to your point of less and less folks know how to DIY it too. I mean, there's the learning curve, and there's a lot of information on the internet that's probably not the right information for how you should do things, right? So, and there's a lot that is. How do you determine what is the truth? You need seasoned experts like yourself. So it is a part of the equation. For us, I will say, we've always said that we're not going to engage on the remodeling front in an active day-to-day business, but thinking about how we future-proof those concepts in the house and the services that we could be providing around that through an HOA that reduces the overall burden for everybody. A great example is you have a small thing like you need a light switch swapped out, and it's hard to get someone to show up just to do that. And if they do, the cost they may charge is fairly significant. So how can that be packaged into an HOA or condo offering where you have somebody at the call to do those kind of things, or a white glove service that does some of these handover items when you move into a home for the first year, hangs your TV. Oh, I want a ceiling fan instead of the recessed can in my middle of my dining room, those kind of things, or middle of my bedroom, those kind of things.
I consider the cost to replace that light switch very fair and wonderful. So, pick what you want, but
yeah.
Right? We come with knowledge, and we're willing to take that little bit of time that we could be earning elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a need for the price.
No, and I'm not criticizing. No, again, if we could find you every time, it'd be great. The problem is we have a hard time finding people in markets to service those needs. And a lot of production builders have gone to that next level of having almost kind of a white glove home as a service model where they can provide that for the first 24 months. And they've turned it into revenue sources where they thought they'd be cost centers. But we appreciate what you're doing, and we want you to keep coming back. Yeah, thank you.
So the current talking point of a 50-year mortgage, good, bad. Obviously you talked about Japan, they have had 50 or 100-year mortgages and we kind of saw what happened there. Is there a better approach? Or is that a good potential moving forward?
I'm going to take a bit of a safe answer here and just, I think we need more innovation on the financing side altogether. We haven't had a whole lot since the 30-year mortgage was introduced. I haven't done the analytics on whether or not 50-year makes sense or not, but I think that there is a lot of opportunity for not only fractional ownership, rent-to-own programs, and other models that allow us to access equity and access the housing that we want without creating a longer payment window. Especially my one concern would be how that's going to be insured and guaranteed when we think about some of the housing stock that would be put on those 50-year mortgages.
So this dovetails with my first question, coming from the other side. as pretty much everyone in this room knows, if there's a standard piece of land, there's going to be an apartment complex built on it. And it's going to have 3 different materials on the facade, and each of them are going to look exactly the same. And they're going to get filled up immediately. They have a fitness center, they have a pool table, they have a ping pong table, they have a golf simulator, they have a dog park, they have a dog washing station, they have a swimming pool, they have barbecues. Young people, young couples want to live there. The reason they want to live there is they don't want to mow a lawn, they don't want to shovel snow, they don't want to pay taxes, they don't want to do a lot of things. Also, if an apartment complex builds a better golf simulator, they'll move. They call 2 guys in a truck, they get there at 9, they've moved by 12. So you have some people that want the Toll Brothers house because that's what they want, exactly that house. 4,800 square feet, they calculate how many dollars it is per square foot, they choose that path. If you're young, and as you said, you can't afford, because you don't have any credit, your FICO score sucks, you have student loans, there's no way, even at the age of 38, you might be able to buy a house. But you can move into a really nice apartment that also has a really nice living room downstairs with a kitchen and really big garbage cans that are built in rather than the little tiny ones in your house. And you can have a party there every night if you want to, and the giant screen TV. So the reason I'm blabbing on about this is because, yes, there's a niche for what you're doing, but there's an enormous amount of inertia. And earlier on, you talked about what people want, what they desire. And I'm on your side. I think what you're doing is the right way to go. But playing devil's advocate, as I pretty much do all my life, is saying that can't happen on the Toll Brothers side, and it's really hard to make it happen to get people to feel like, no, this apartment is not good. No, they love it.
Yeah. No, and I think we need a variety of housing solutions. I'm not promoting one over the other necessarily. We work with an audience that primarily works with single-family detached housing at scale. But I also think if you look at that kind of missing middle paradigm that I shared with you, with high-density housing on the right and then lower density on the left, like finding that sweet spot in the middle where you're looking at attached townhomes, cottage courts, live workspaces that can be integrated. So you can get similar densities out of those product types that you'd get out of a 3 or 4 story apartment building. You can also add community amenities. So I think the build to rent space has created an opportunity for people to kind of test drive what homeownership looks like. So I get my separate space. I still have to maintain, I don't have to maintain everything, but I get to see what the single family home lifestyle is like, and still have access to all that amenity that you've described. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to innovate on the experience we create and how we create it. And I think that's where, build to rent wasn't an institutional asset class until the last few years, but it's been around in different shapes and forms for over 20 years. I think a lot of builders, smaller builders especially, that's kind of their business model. They built a bunch of homes and they rented the last few, and then it was a tax efficient way to take their income. Well, when we went through the great financial crisis, a forcing function came through where folks couldn't sell their homes. They had to rent them, and that became a way to start making money. When you look at the total costs of, I don't have the sales and marketing expenses, but I now do have the leasing fees. You kind of break it down and look at a different business. It became an asset class that people are still chasing after. A lot of it has to do with the FICO score piece of it too, so there's a policy lever there. But I think the innovation needs to happen on how we create those experiences. I think there's going to be different strokes for different folks on the types of housing and the amenity that's offered and the cost that they can afford to pay for that. And I think the more you build it in, oftentimes the more cost effective it becomes to everybody. So I think that's why the multifamily model works well. There was a group that we just talked to over in Asia. They're doing a lot of work in Thailand. They build 600 and 700 unit communities. They're all micro apartments of about 300 square feet, but it's all about the programming and the experience. It's $1,000 a month. Everything included. It's like being on an all-inclusive trip forever, right, for your lease term. They only do short-term leases, so they have to lease just under a year, but it's an auto-renew. So they've come up with all these mechanisms that allow people to come and go, and they've leased all 5 of them up overnight. So I agree with you 100%, and that's a 300 square foot. Now that's a different consumer group, but do we see something like that starting to make its way into the US market to create a more affordable experience for folks? Because what they want is the experience. They're just sleeping in the room. You know, co-living didn't work. They tried, I mean, co-living was kind of an angle on that, and it didn't quite work the same way they wanted to. But I think I agree with you. I think there's definitely ways that we can play into what consumers are asking for and innovate on the experience, on how we create that experience on both the economics and the programming.
So I'll go back to Ernest. One of the ideas was to encourage engineering students to go into home building. And we provide a program, right? We have courses, we have competitions, we have minor. So a lot of the students are interested, they get into the minor. We always have about 20 students in the pipeline to get a minor in residential construction. So that means they want to get into residential construction. But let's see what happens when they graduate. The offers that come from the commercial side, they're much more sweeter than the residential construction. So my question to you is that what message do you have to our students to encourage them to get into residential construction as opposed to commercial?
Well, that's a really good question, because I think so. Somebody once told me, "Well, how do you talk to someone who's trying to figure out if they want to go into construction or not in the first place?" I'll start there. And we can't do anything without the built environment. There's no doctors, no teachers, no healthcare providers, right? Or not doctors, teachers, et cetera. So without creating the built environment, we can't do the things we need to do as society. So then, to your point on why residential over commercial, I think we've all had that experience of home and community, and we would want to recreate that for others. And we're at a moment in time where that's at risk. And I showed the picture of my kids because, you know, and not everybody's going to have the desire to have a family or have a family like this. But the idea is the fact that we are having that conversation as it's saving for college or saving for housing is a moment where we can rise to the occasion and put our talent to test and actually solve a real pain point in the industry, not only in the industry but in society.
So with the ideas that you have, like the slide that showed about the robotic construction and all these advanced technologies, they're going to need engineers to actually work on those. So
Yeah.
Do you see an opportunity that maybe in the near future, the housing industry, if they start to deploy these technologies, they actually become very attractive to residential construction students as opposed to commercial?
Well, I think you hit on a great point there. The job that we're doing today, the jobs that we're hiring for today are not going to be the jobs that we're hiring for tomorrow. And a lot of the work that we're doing around what does the future home building company look like and how do we staff that, and what are the talent sets that we need and the experiences we're looking for, and what industries are we pulling them from? I mean, you're seeing that happen already. So I would absolutely agree that there's going to be disciplines that come into the home building space that would have never pursued it before. I think that's an educational opportunity on and that's part of what we're trying to do, create awareness around what is there and what pathways could be pursued. So I think you nailed it. And I think finding ways to work with more universities, for me personally, over the last 4 years, to introduce students to what we're doing and the folks that are doing it. We started it with the lightest lift was, I just needed some executives picked up at the airport. And people were interviewing to make those runs, right? And then it led from there to now you're facilitating a lot of the panel sessions at our events. And then it led to now you're hosting the networking events. And so we've kind of built that out over time to get people engaged with the folks that are on the front end of or the tip of the innovation spear within the industry so that they can start thinking about, well, when I graduate in 3 to 4 years, or if I'm in for my master's, how might this apply? My previous experience as an engineer, now I'm in for my MBA, apply into the home building space in the most direct way possible. So.
All right, let's thank our speaker one more time. And I would like to ask Richard to come forward, Richard Hankin, to help presenting our speaker with this plaque. And Richard can say a few words if you would like.
Thank you, Dennis, for that great talk, very interesting. This is for you.
Thank you.
And my father always wanted, his vision was to have professionals be the ones to build houses, and certainly you are, and, you know. And hopefully some of you students will, be the professionals in the future that will build the houses. And thank you for coming here today to recognize, to be part of my father's vision of having, experts and people that really know what they're doing building the houses. And I think that's what he wanted, and I've been coming up here, came up here with my dad starting in 1987. He passed away in 1994, and I've been coming here ever since. And it's been wonderful all the years, and Dr. Mamari's done a great job, and Chris and the whole staff does a wonderful job of just disseminating information and making every effort so professional people that are experts are the ones building houses. And I think that's kind of what this whole thing is all about.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again to our speaker, Dennis, for this great motivational, inspirational lecture presentation. Thank you, Richard, Sam, and Hankin family, and all other sponsors of our programs. Your support ensures the continued success of our educational program and amplifies the work of PHRC in empowering the practical side, application side of residential construction industry as we educate the next generation of professionals. So please join us outside for a reception, and thank you again for joining the 2025 Hankin Distinguished Lecture. We hope to see you next year as well. Thank you.